These and more coming on the world today. Stay with us. Good evening, viewers. You're watching the World Today newscast here on iAfrica TV. I am Sohna Tunkara, and now to our news in detail. The Ministry of Health, through the National Malaria Control Program, commemorated the 2021 World Malaria Day on the theme Zero Malaria. According to the WHO, the Gambia is among 6 out of 44 countries in Africa to achieve the 2020 milestone of reducing the malaria deaths by 40%. Amin Dao tells us more.
Malaria is caused by a plasmodium parasite which is spread to people through the bites of infected female Anopheles mosquitoes. World Malaria Day is observed annually to bring global attention to the efforts being made to bring an end to malaria and mobilize additional resources and empower communities. Dr. Desta Tirune, WHO representative to the Gambia, gave the situational report of malaria in Africa, narrowing it down to the achievements made so far.
In the 2019 statistics in the World Malaria Report, it shows that 94% of the cases and deaths are occurring in this continent, Africa, while the continent contributes only to 17% of the world population. This is really enormous. What we are saying is, despite the great progress made in malaria response in the region, we have made progress also. Out of the 44 countries, endemic countries in the region, I'm pleased to note that the Gambia is among 6 countries that have achieved the 2020 milestones of reducing the incidence and death by 40% of the 2015 level.
Balakande, the program manager of National Malaria Control Program, said efforts in the early 21st century have been a mark of global cooperation.
As long as malaria exists, it threatens the poorest and most vulnerable and has the potential to resurge in times of public crisis like the COVID-19. Efforts to fight malaria have been a hallmark of global cooperation of the early 21st century. More than ever, we must unite to protect our hard-won gains against malaria and effectively address existing and emerging threats to global health.
Dr. Umberto, director of the Medical Research Center, recalled some of the achievements in the production of malarial vaccine and the role of stakeholders in the fight against malaria.
My colleague here, Dr. Tirune, mentioned the malaria vaccine. I've been contributing to the development of the malaria vaccine, and also the Gambia was the first country that tested the malaria vaccine here by Dr. Khalifa Bojang in Basse. And now the malaria vaccine is now almost ready to be implemented. As mentioned, there's been a pilot implementation in Ghana, Malawi, and Kenya, and it looks like, the results are not out yet, but it looks like that it has been a successful implementation, has been given to more than 1 million children.
This year's Malaria Day comes at a time when the world is battling with the spread of coronavirus. Experts, however, have called on governments to not forget about malaria despite the concerted efforts on COVID-19. Reporting for iAfrica News, I am Amin Dao.
From the report by Amin Dao, the International Organization for Migration in the Gambia has clarified issues surrounding the organization in the management of migration issues. The IOM has been partnering with the government since 2017 to facilitate the return of voluntary migrants and support their reintegration. Our reporter Binta Jalo met up with the spokesperson of IOM, and she now reports.
Established in 1951, the International Organization for Migration is the leading organization in the field of migration, working closely with governmental and non-governmental partners. With 173 member states, a further 9 states holding observer status and offices in over 100 countries, which includes the Gambia. The organization is dedicated to the promotion of human and orderly migration for the benefit of all. iAfrica TV engaged Public Relations Officer of the International Organization for Migration, Miko Alasas, on some of their intervention areas in the Gambia since 2017.
Since 2017, IOM has supported the return and or reintegration of upward of over 5,000 returnees. A majority of these are through a program that we call the EU-IOM Joint Initiative for Migrant Protection and Reintegration. This is funded by the EU Emergency Trust Fund for Africa, and other programs as well, funded through different donors like the German government, the Swiss government. And really a majority of these, over 3,000, have returned home from Libya. We all know that many Gambians were stranded in Libya at when there was a civil unrest in the country. Another 1,000 plus coming from Niger, and the rest coming from countries.
It is common to find complaints on various platforms that the International Migration Body is partly responsible for issues like deportation of youth from Europe and the encouragement of strict migration regulations. However, Mr. Alasas clarified that such misconceptions are mainly from the public regarding IOM's work.
Well, I think a lot of the complaints stem from the misunderstanding of IOM's work. So there are a few, and I'd like also to take this opportunity to clarify for the knowledge of the public. So first of all, there's a misconception that IOM is able to assist any and all returnees, and I think that's a very, very dangerous assumption because IOM, a lot of the programming we were running in the Gambia started in 2017. So first of all, we are not necessarily able to assist people who have come back home before 2017. There's also an element of if you returned home on your own, we're also not able to support you. So we can only provide reintegration assistance if your return back home was facilitated through an IOM movement or was a case referred to us by one of our partners.
He acknowledged a cordial working relationship with government, with all IOM interventions meant to complement national development initiatives. For iAfrica News, Binta Jallo.
Despite the impact of global COVID-19 pandemic, Egypt's hotel industry is gradually returning to normalcy after a long break due to the pandemic. Several businesses, including the hospitality sector, were adversely affected when the government introduced measures to contain the spread of the virus. But stakeholders are hopeful of a positive season in 2021. The government continues to support from the industry. More in this report.
The Collier International report paints a positive picture for Egypt's hotel industry this year. This is despite the damaging coronavirus-led fallout that pummeled the industry in 2020. An average 38% occupancy rate is an improvement from the previous year, but is still half of the pre-COVID-19 rates.
Low expectations because we did not receive many nationalities to the Egyptian destinations, just the East European, but all the West European like German, Dutch, Belgium, UK, they did not start arriving. So that's why the expectations are definitely it will never be same as 2019. It will take time. It will take at least two years to receive same number. Egypt started to have new source markets we have never received before. For the leisure, like Romania, like from Moldova, from Serbia. So the market mix became totally different than before.
Ironically, despite the industry ailing due to the pandemic, Top Hotel News says there are 54 new hotels under construction in Egypt. These are expected to add 16,000 rooms to the market.
The return on the investment, they could see as well that it would be coming in a shorter period of time. Despite all the what has been happening, the government also has been supporting investors during the pandemic to ensure they are operational, to ensure that they are able to keep their workers. And all of these efforts by the government, when the investors find that the government is quite serious about it and is doing, they would approach the country to make their investments in it.
And Amr Karim, an executive at Travco Group, which owns 70 hotels, agrees that the North African country has potential for more investments.
It's inevitable for them because they can see that the tourism in Egypt, it will never die because of we have many different attractions. Even before the pandemic, most of the international chains, they said that they will have, let's say, 100 new hotels in Egypt, around 350,000 rooms. And I think this plan will never change because they can see what's going on now. The country is really, they concentrate and they want to invest in the tourism because of the impact of the GDP is very important. I mean, it was 9%. I think later on it will be more.
For now, players say the hotels that are still operating have had to cut costs and attract business from new markets. This is in a bid to survive the slump until there is recovery of tourism inflows.
Still on the global front, now in Zimbabwe, government seeks to improve tobacco production for the next 5 years as part of an initiative to generate more foreign currency reserves. Tobacco farming has been a success story in the South African country, and authorities vow to boost the industry to reinforce revenue collection. Despite the new initiative, the long-standing payment arrangements for farmers remains a concern.
A good rainy season is expected to propel tobacco deliveries to 200 million kilograms, up from 135 million in 2020. About $800 million will be generated. Because of that export earning capacity, Zimbabwe wants to significantly grow the industry over the next 5 years.
Tobacco farming has been a success story in terms of like small, or communal, farmers in terms of their engagement to the sector. So building on that would make sense. But the manner in which it has to be done also requires expanding markets. Because the major markets will be the likes of China and things like that, but then there's need to also go beyond that and expand markets, but also capacity, and also improve some of the payment modalities. Because by the end of the day, it should be profitable for the farmer.
Payments have been a persistent bone of contention. This year, farmers will get 60% of their proceeds in US dollars, well below the 80% they had wanted.
Why is it that farmers are clamoring for that? You understand that all the inputs that the farmers actually use, and even the machinery is actually bought using US dollars. And even the loans that they borrow, everything is charged in US dollars. So you find that the farmers, what entails the farmers are supposed to also get 100% payment.
Farmers say the 40% they receive in local currency is converted at the official exchange rate, while most suppliers peg their prices at the much higher parallel market rate. The prevailing payment arrangement could scupper the $5 billion target.
That figure, to be realistic, is still away from us unless we put all the fundamentals that I have actually mentioned right. Then we can actually see a growth. There will be a slightly growth, of course, but I don't see us hitting the 250 or 300 million, that unless those fundamentals have been addressed, then we can talk of a huge crop.
Government is heavily dependent on tobacco revenues to bolster sparse foreign currency reserves.
Now moving on to the matters of the Truth Commission, the Executive Secretary of TRRC, Baba Gale Jallow, said the Commission will recommend the prosecution of certain individuals to ensure justice for victims. Jallow made this remark in an exclusive interview with iAfrica TV on Thursday. The Truth Commission is expected to produce a report containing the findings and recommendations when it concludes hearings in July. The document will be submitted to the President for action. We have more in this report by Binta Fati.
The Gambia's Truth Commission is at advanced stage of its public hearings on the gross human rights violations, extrajudicial killings, enforced disappearance of journalists, interference in the justice system, among other issues during Jammeh's era. The Commission is expected to produce a report containing the findings and recommendations when it completes hearing in July. The document that will be submitted to the President will guide the justice and reparation process to ensure national healing. The Executive Secretary of the TRRC, Baba Gale Jallow, said the Commission will recommend for the government to prosecute individuals who were more responsible for violations of fundamental human rights of victims.
Certainly, the role of the TRRC is to, after exploring, identifying all kinds of human rights abuses, to make recommendations to the government that certain individuals who were more responsible for these human rights violations need to be prosecuted. And the TRRC is going to make those recommendations. We will certainly recommend that some people be prosecuted, and that could be some form of justice for the victims.
Jallow said the Commission is helping victims who need medical assistance and scholarships. According to him, prosecution of perpetrators and executing institutional reforms will be left to the government to act on the recommendations given to them.
As far as prosecutorial justice is concerned, taking people to court, that would be left to the government to do. And I believe they should do it. I believe that the Gambian people should insist that the recommendations of prosecutions that will come out of the TRRC are implemented by the government.
The Truth Commission revealed several human rights violations, including extrajudicial killings, enforced disappearance of victims, as well as journalists, among a host of violations on the fundamental human rights of victims. TRRC was established by an Act of Parliament to investigate and establish an impartial historical record of human rights violations, but to also consider reparations for victims of abuses, promote reconciliation, and a non-reoccurrence. For iAfrica TV News, I am Binta Fati.
From the report by Binta Fati, we'll now go with a short commercial break and the news continues. Stay tuned.
The pride we take in our brand, the work we put into constantly change the landscape and elevate real estate in the Gambia, it's compared to none. From inception, our goal was to add value to the beautiful Gambian landscape. That's why we are proud innovators of community estates. Kololi Sands is an exceptional piece of work, tailored for ultimate convenience and luxury, to bring you an element of finesse that is rare but unique in its own. This is also our pride and joy, and we welcome you to the exquisite beauty right here in Kololi and right here on the waterfront. Kololi Sands, feel the ocean breeze at your doorstep.
Welcome back. If you're just joining in, this is the World Today newscast. And now to the remaining stories. Syria has received its first delivery of over 200 doses of the AstraZeneca vaccine as part of the COVAX vaccine sharing program. The first batch of the COVID-19 vaccine shipped from the Serum Institute of India will be allocated to frontline health workers, including those in northeast Syria, according to its officials. The ICC has the rest of that story. apologize for that technical issue. Now, ahead of the reopening of schools in Kenya, the government plans to vaccinate all teachers as part of measures to protect them against the coronavirus pandemic. The move is welcomed by the teachers, considering that they were among people hardly hit by the virus, and some parents of the students also supported the initiative, despite holding reservations on safety of their children.
Kenya's education calendar has been greatly affected by the COVID-19 pandemic, and with just weeks to go before schools are reopened, the Kenyan government is making arrangements for all teachers to be vaccinated. Peter Amunga, who is a senior teacher and also an official of the Kenyan National Union of Teachers, has already been vaccinated. He is upbeat at school term.
A vaccine, especially for teachers, over COVID-19 is very important. So we have taken it that it is good for us. It's good to safeguard our lives. And because we are frontline workers, we are mixing with learners every day, we have taken it positively that vaccination is important.
This school is getting ready for yet another unpredictable term. Many teachers have come here well ahead of reopening day so as to prepare for the work ahead.
Prepare your child well, teach them about this pandemic, let them know what it's all about, prepare them and look for a mask for them.
How far are you with your work?
Rachel Angatia, who is a mother of two, is preparing for school term ahead too. Her children, Tumaini and Talia, are finishing their school assignments and revising work done earlier. In a few weeks' time, the children will be back in class. As a mother, she has concerns about the safety of the young learners.
We have the third wave of the COVID-19 with us now, and we have really tried to keep these children safe. We have ensured that they stay in the house. We have ensured that they put on masks when they leave, and we supervise. We are here to supervise even when we go out. We're able to supervise their putting on of masks and all that. But now when we release them to go to the school van or the school bus, it becomes a bit tricky because they're children. At the end of the day, they're children, and they will drop their masks.
Kenya's Teachers Service Commission says the country has lost 8 head teachers, 3 deputy head teachers and 15 teachers to the COVID-19 pandemic. It has instructed teachers' health insurance providers to ensure that they provide medical cover for teachers seeking treatment for any COVID-19 related ailments. For many parents, the vaccination of teachers is a welcome move.
I think it is best that they be vaccinated. It is best. We have better chances for the safety of our children if the teachers are vaccinated as compared to when they are not.
The new school calendar will be starting off here in Kenya in a few weeks. Parents, teachers and even pupils and students are hoping that this time round there'll be seamless coverage of syllabus without hiccups. It's been almost 2 years of inconsistency, and so many students are also failing the exams or performing dismally, courtesy of the gaps.
Back on this serious story, the country has received its first delivery of 200 doses of the AstraZeneca vaccine as part of the COVAX sharing program. The first batch of the COVID-19 vaccine shipped from the Serum Institute of India will be allocated to frontline health workers, including those in northeast Syria, according to its officials.
Syria is one of the 92 countries eligible for advanced market distribution of COVID-19 vaccines under the COVAX facility. 53,000 doses of the vaccine were delivered to the northwest, where conflict and displacement had continued. The distribution of the AstraZeneca vaccine continues in different countries, despite the suspension flag hosted by several European countries months ago. The Global Vaccine Alliance, WHO and UNICEF are providing detailed technical assistance to the national authority in Syria-Lebanon border crossing. The arrival of the vaccines came as a new wave of infections engulfed medical centers around Syria. The AstraZeneca vaccine shipment in Syria is part of COVAX campaign aiming to vaccinate 20% of the country's population by targeting frontline workers before the end of the year. Although Syria's civil war has complicated the delivery of the vaccines, the country is expected to receive more delivery of the vaccines in the coming weeks and months. Syria was hit very hard by the pandemic last year, during 2 spikes in infections in August and December, with health workers citing a rise in cases since February. According to UN officials, the country has recorded more than 51,000 confirmed cases, including 1,483 deaths. COVAX is the vaccine facility of the Access to COVID-19 Tools Accelerator, breaking global collaboration to accelerate development, production, and equitable access to COVID-19 treatments and vaccines. Reporting for iAfrica News, I am Daisy.
Well, that was all on the World Today newscast with me, Sohna Tunkara. You can catch up with Mariama Cham at Gambia 24 at 2000 hours. Thanks for watching and bye for now.